Hi everyone, it's Shannon here for Hero Arts. In today's video, we are going to create this bright and splashy card mainly featuring the March Classic kit, but we'll also be using an item from the Premium kit as well. We're going to start by stamping some images using this clear stamp set included in the Classic kit as well as the Premium kit. I picked out the orange and the orange slice. I'm going to ink them up in Intens-ified black ink. This is a alcohol-friendly ink, which is perfect because we're going to Copic color these. I stamped them once and then inked them up a second time and stamped them again, just to make sure my images are bold and crisp. Now that I've stamped my images, we're ready to Copic color. I'm going to start with the core and the pith, and I'm just going to color them one single color, which is Y00, just a really light yellow. Now I'm going to move on to the flesh. We're going to start with Y06. This is actually our light. Then we're going to move on to our medium shade, which is Y15. And I'm going to color at the outer edges of each of the segments, kind of following along the detail lines as well. Then we'll move on to our dark, which is YR23. Again, coloring that outer edge of the segments. And then I'm now back to that Y15 and just kind of blending out that medium and dark. Then I did a little cleanup with my Y00, and now we're going to move on to this orange slice here and just color it with the same marker, starting with the Y6, then our medium shade, which is Y15. Now I'm on the dark shade, which is YR23, and then just blending it out. Now we're going to move on to the peel, starting with Y17 as our light. And once I kind of get this base down, I'll move on to our medium shade, which is YR04. Try to keep this really bright and intense. Not only does this make it look more like an orange, but definitely want to kind of bring in the bright liquid watercolor that we're going to incorporate later. So now I'm just blending it out, and now I'm moving on to the peel on this slice. And then for my last slice here, it doesn't actually have like a visible line for the peel. So I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of my 3 orange colors to that very outer edge, making sure not to lose that really light yellow that we added for the pith earlier. This just adding that little bit of color there to the very edge just really brings home that this is an orange slice. Now we're going to finish this up by coloring the leaf and stem, starting with G43 for the base of the leaf, then moving on to my medium shade, which is YG67 for the stem as well as the leaf, and then I'll finish up with my dark, which is G28, and just use it to kind of heighten the lines in the leaf and add a little darker shade to the stem. I use the matching dies here to die cut these die cuts out, and I'm just going to set them aside as we move on to our background. I have an A2 panel here of watercolor paper, and I'm going to start with this Neon Brights Orange liquid watercolor. This is new and it is included in the Premium kit. I'm just going to add a little bit of this watercolor directly to my panel, kind of in the upper portion of my panel. Then grab a spray bottle with some water and a rocket air blaster or blower. We're going to move this color around, and the air blaster makes it very easy. You can use a straw if you prefer, or if you don't have this, but I really like using my rocket air blaster to move my watercolor around. So I'm just kind of blowing the liquid watercolor around here just to kind of make a really fun, perfect little splatter on this panel. And this does take me some time. I kind of go back and forth and kind of really work the watercolor around. I realized I needed a little bit more of that brights orange, so I did add a little bit to the panel again, spritz some more water on top, and now I'm just again working that color around to create this really fun splatter. Once I get it kind of the way I like, I'm going to set that aside to dry completely. Now you can dry this with your heat gun if you're a little impatient, but it does tend to kind of warp the paper a little bit. So now that the panel is completely dry, we're going to use a new color. This color isn't out yet. This is the bright yellow. You could totally just leave it with the orange and be done, but I wanted a little additional another color just to add a little bit more interest. I applied it to my my splatter right in the middle, added some water, and again I'm going to move this color around. I really like how this color looks almost like a highlighter. It's really fun and bright, and it does mix a little bit. It does kind of reactivate the orange that we had earlier, and it kind of creates a new color in some areas as well. So really fun. Now if you don't have these new neon liquid watercolors, you can totally create this background with just regular liquid watercolors, or even just add your, kind of mix up your watercolor with your water, apply it to the panel, and then again just move it around with a straw or a rocket air blaster. Now that this splatter is the way I like it, I'll set it aside to dry. It's now completely dry, and we're going to kind of trim it down using a rectangles die from the Nesting Rectangles Infinity die set. You of course could just use a paper trimmer to trim this down, but the die makes it easy to kind of frame up and center the best part of the panel. Now that that panel is cut, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I just temporarily placed my orange die cuts on here so I know where to stamp my sentiment. Positioned it, picked it up with my Misty, and I'm also going to stamp this in Intens-ified black ink. Stamped it a couple times to make sure it was nice and bold and crisp, and now we're ready to kind of put this card together. I have an A2 top folding white card base that I'm going to adhere my watercolor panel to. I'm going to adhere it with some foam adhesive to add some dimension. This is pretty much a clean and simple card, even though it's very bright and bold, but there's not a lot of elements to it, so the little bit of dimension adds a lot. So I just removed the backing, and now I'm centering it on the card front. You can see how our panel's a little bit smaller than the card, and that just kind of scales down our canvas and just is perfect for this clean and simple card, so it doesn't feel like it's these die cuts are kind of swimming in this background. Then I added some foam adhesive to the back of my orange die cuts and then placed them over that sentiment, and that actually completes this card. I'll bring it to the camera so you can get a good look at that really fun splashy background. I think it works perfectly with that sentiment that says squeeze the day, and the colors just really are heightened with that neon and of course our Copic coloring of the oranges. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If any questions about the products I used, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.